All right, well, but we don't want our game to only do this, obviously. This is just a start. And so we need to think about what is a game. A game is, it has the illusion of movement, and you can interact with and change the stuff on screen. So we need to create a situation where stuff is able to move around the screen, and we need to. And animations are created by drawing a frame, hanging it on the screen, and then very quickly drawing another one with slight variations in the position of the objects. So we need to think about it like an animation at first, and so we're going to create a loop that's able to draw an animation, and it's going to do that over and over and over and over and over. And so inside play game, instead of just having it draw, instead of just calling draw, we are going to create our game loop. So this is the main game loop here, game loop. And we just want this to go over and over and over. So we're just going to say while running, and we're going to create that Boolean. You could even do just like while 1 equals 1, but we're just going to create a Boolean. So private, this is private Boolean running. We're going to initialize that. Good practice in the constructor. So running equals true. And then inside the game loop, we want to create the illusion of animation. And so what do we want to do? Well, we want to update all of the objects little by little. So you can imagine enemies moving around with a certain velocity in the X and Y direction. You can imagine the player is jumping and things. And so these frames need to be updated over the course of time. And so let's just call update. And in update, our intention is going to be to call the various elements and update them. So we're going to say like the ball.update and enemies.update, and we'll have all sorts of things that update their position and characteristics and attributes based on time. The other thing we need to do is we need to draw that stuff to our buffered image in memory, and we're going to use the method called draw to do that. So draw, its whole goal is going to be to draw well, not really to draw, but create the image in memory. So I could even rename this like create image in memory, but you know that it's draw is just easier to write, so I'm going to leave that. So this doesn't hang anything on the panel, it creates a buffered image in memory. And then the final thing we call is going to seem a little weird at first, repaint, which is part of Java Swing. It's not a mystery, obviously. It doesn't appear in our class anywhere. Where's Repaint? Repaint is built into Java Swing, and it calls Paint Component. So I'm not quite sure why we can't just call Paint Component, but we can't. We need to call Repaint, and that'll accomplish this goal for us. I'm sure there's a very good reason why we use Repaint rather than Paint Component, and I'm just not thinking of it at the time. Okay, so this is a very basic game loop, but the computer is incredibly fast, and it's going to do these things really quickly, as fast as it can, unless we slow it down. So we're actually going to do a thing called wait. So we're going to, you have to surround, so what's happening here is that there are things, well, there are processes that you initialize that unless the computer is told otherwise, it will always try and do them as quickly as is possible to do them. And so we need to, for a game, we need to control that speed. And so we're going to start very basic, and I'm going to show you better ways to do this in a little bit. But we just need to tell the game to pause a little bit in our game loop. Otherwise, the animations will go too fast. It will try and update them too quickly. They won't pause on the screen long enough for our eyes to be able to see them. And so I'm just going to write this code, and then I'm going to talk about it. So we have to try, and we want the thread to sleep. And we're just going to say a fixed value, but later on we'll change that. And then we're going to try and catch if there are any exceptions. And should we encounter an exception, we just want to know about it. So we're going to print the stack trace to the console so that we know what exception was thrown. Now, a lot of this it's going to seem a little complicated, but basically this is a way to prevent your program from crashing. There is a thread, which is just a part of the program running, threads can be run in parallel. So imagine, at the same time as you're checking your email on your computer, you can be listening to music and you can be writing a Word document. So you can do those three things. Those are each threads that the computer is running and is managing. That's the operating system's job. And so a single program can have multiple processes or threads also. And what we're doing is we're referencing the main thread here, and we're asking it to try to sleep for 20 milliseconds. So pause, please. After you display each frame of our animation, pause for 20 seconds. And if you should encounter an exception, print the stack trace. Now, to be quite frank, I'm not totally sure why. In this case, we have to surround this with what's called a try-catch block, but we do. I'm not an expert in why that is, but the compiler or IDEs will let you know generally when you need to surround things with try-catch blocks. I'm sure there's a good sort of pattern to that, but I'm not quite sure what the pattern is. Okay, and so I think that's enough for this video. So this is the main game loop. In the next video, we'll actually put that game loop to work and show you that it can create an animation.